This time, Trustee Teasdale, would you do the call to order?
Sure. Trustee Verma?
Present.
Trustee Teasdale? Present. Trustee Margolis?
Present.
Trustee Kilgore?
Present.
Trustee Chekai? Absent, excused. Trustee Mena?
Present.
Trustee Suring?
Present.
Student Representative Matthew? Present. Student Representative Wang? Present. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time, I'd like the board members to take a look at the agenda. I would like to propose an addition to the agenda. I'd like to call it item 6B, and that would be an introduction of our newest appointed board member. We'd add that as 6B.
Motion to approve the agenda as with the suggested amendment.
Second.
If there are no other comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? The agenda as amended has been approved. Moving on to item number 4 in our agenda, which is the consent agenda. Any comments on the consent agenda? If there's no comments on the consent agenda, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
The consent agenda has been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Hearing none, the consent agenda has been approved. Item number 5 on our agenda is correspondence. I would ask, we did receive some correspondence this month? No. Julie asked you to report on that?
Yes, thank you, Trustee Eastery. The first correspondence, which is on page 11, is a thank you letter from Bethany Bratney, the media specialist at the Novi High School. For the past 3 years now with the Community Read, we have invited the Novi High School to be part of our project and to be part of our reading campaign. And we have been able to bring the author that normally comes to the library also to the high school for a separate presentation, typically following the author event that's at the library. This is a note from Bethany thanking us, the library, for including them in our Community Read project and events, and we hope to continue that partnership with them for the future. Another note that I'd like to make during this time of correspondence is something that I failed to put in the report this week. When I sent it out to you, it was a letter. I just want to bring your attention to a letter from the American Businesswomen's Association. It was a thank you certificate and a thank you letter to the library for us participating in their annual auction. Typically, the library provides a library bag with gently used donated books and some other paraphernalia that markets the library, and that goes towards their auction for them to use. So I just wanted to make note that unfortunately I failed to put that in the report, but wanted to make note of it for all of you that we did receive that thank you as well.
Okay.
That's it for this evening. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to item number 6, which is presentation. At this time, I'm going to ask Trustee Kilgore to meet me at the podium. We want to recognize him for his years of service on the library board. We have a plaque for Trustee Kilgore. It says, in grateful recognition of your dedicated service, Lawrence A. Kilgore, March 2006 to December 2013, Novi Public Library Board of Trustees.
Thank you.
Larry, I want to personally thank you. I've known you for years, and it's not only the things that you've done at the board for this library, it's the things you do for this library when you're not on the board. Your dedication to this library has been so great. You've served almost at every position on the board, as president, as secretary, as treasurer, and you're so dedicated. So many of the policies that we have, you have personally written, and that we really are going to miss you. And thank you for everything that you've done.
Thank you. This is going to go in a place of honor.
Good.
Thank you so much. I just want to I just want to say a couple words and actually echo really what Mark Stirring said, is that Larry really was one of our huge proponents in the policies, both HR and library policies, when we were moving from the old building to the new. And if it weren't for his expertise, your wonderful way of language, which helped us put together and really think about the types of information we wanted to make available to the public, I think we might still be struggling over some of them. So I truly appreciate the time and dedication that you put into that particular project, but also it's been such an honor working with you as your library board director and you as a board member for our library. You've just made a huge impact, and I cannot thank you enough. So thank you very much.
Do you want to say something now, Laura, or do you want to do it now's as good a time as any? I know that you wanted to say something. We'll let you say it now.
We'll welcome Laura Casey, one of our council members, to the podium.
Wow, good evening, everyone. This is a night that I didn't see coming for another decade or two, hopefully, perhaps. But to echo Trustee Kilgore, much of the comments that you've heard tonight, serving with you on the library board was such an honor for me. Julie mentioned the work you did on the policies, and I can tell you the number of drafts that I wound up reading that Trustee Kilgore wrote and rewrote, and just the amount of attention to detail that you put in them. But I think more to the point, Larry, you have been such a fixture on this board and such a fixture in this community with the dedication that you've had to the library, and we are definitely going to miss you in the building, on the board, in our community. And I just wish you all the best, and I really hope that you are happy in your upcoming retirement, which you just told me was still another 5 to 10 years away. And I wish you were staying in our community, but we are better for having you as a library trustee. This community is better off because of the dedication and the service that you provided. So thank you so much for everything you've done. It has been such a treat to have worked with you for the last 6 years, however long it was. So thank you very much.
I'm so glad this wasn't a roast. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank library staff. I would like to thank Councilperson Casey. It's been a wonderful 6 years. Of all the boards I have sat on, this has certainly been the most professional, collegial, and productive. When I think back of all the things that got done over the past 6 years, it's kind of mind-boggling. And I think everyone should be proud of what got done. I'm certainly going to be proud and happy for having been here. It's been a great experience. It's been wonderful knowing all of you. It's been more than wonderful working with all of you. And I wish the library the best of success in the future. Thank you.
This is Larry's last meeting with us, and last night at the city council meeting, Mayor Gatt appointed a new member to start in Larry's position beginning in the new year, which will be January. So I'd like to introduce you all to Craig Messerneck. Craig. If you wouldn't mind maybe just sharing just a little bit about yourself.
Sure.
And you and I have already talked about this, but what you hope maybe as a goal for this library board? Okay?
Sure.
Great,
Be
thank
happy
you.
to. Well, obviously, I have very big shoes to fill from what I've heard, both tonight and before. I've been a member of the Novi community for 13 years, going on 14, I guess. Been active in the community in a variety of ways, including doing some volunteer work with the Friends of the Library and helping out there. Professionally, I'm currently retired. I had served 3 years in the Army as an officer and then about 30 years in a variety of business leadership roles, bringing, I believe, a lot of attributes to the board that will be helpful. Again, been involved in a lot of community activities. I think the Novi Library is just a real gem, and the whole community is fortunate to have it. And I'm looking forward to being part of the board that helps to continue what you guys have done so well.
Thank you. We look forward to having you joining us as well.
Good. Thank you all.
Thank you, thank you. With that, moving on to public comment. Another chance, Laura, if you want another public comment. If there's nobody that wants to speak at now, the public comment, we'll move on to the president's report, at which time we'll talk about the library goals.
Great. So just a few things for me to point out to you this month as we continue to work on our goals for the 2013-2014 year. On page 12, just wanted to point out towards the bottom of the page, we are currently in conversations with MSU Tollgate to plan our Project Grow programming for this spring. Project Grow is the start of our opportunity to reach out more towards the north end of the community, hold additional programming off-site, work with our business partners, and we hope to gain more users of the library. So we call it Project Grow. We will be working very closely with the Friends of the Library, who are actually supporting monetarily with funds to support some of the programming that we'll be planning this spring. And hopefully this will be our kickoff and our way to start that outreach that we're looking to do in the north end. So just wanted to point out that. On page 13, we did host a wonderful hockey event this past Saturday. Unfortunately, the weather was quite frightful. So the snow did keep our patrons away. We had a small turnout, but it was a wonderful program. Two amazing authors talking about the Red Wings and Hockey Town and its amazing years, you know, with the Stanley Cup and the experiences in history that we've been able to experience as Detroiters, native Detroiters. So it was a wonderful program, and the purpose of having that program, people ask, gosh, how come the library, you know, did something hockey related? Well, it was because of our geek program and the campaign we did last year. We were asking our patrons, what do they geek, what do they love, what are their passions? And in that top 10 was hockey. So we made sure that we brought some of that programming, and you'll start to see some more unique programming coming down the path from the library in relation to the geek programming that we had heard about and had heard from our patrons as to what they want. So that was just a little snippet, but we tested the waters. I do think it would have been a very successful program had we not had about 6 to 8 inches of snow, and it was falling all through the program. Unfortunately, even our one author was delayed about 45 minutes getting to the library because of the weather and the road. So, but it was still a very good success for us. They were very pleased, and we're continuing to make more connections. I think there's an opportunity to bring the author back even at another time. So another bit of information to point out to you would be on page 15, and that is that Margie Karp-Operer and April Stevenson, two of our staff, met with our instructional coaches and the media specialists from the Novi School District, and that was all part of a partnership for our summer reading program and to improve our reading program with the schools. They gave a presentation in November at the school board meeting, and I wanted to just point that out to you, that we are at least twice a year reaching out to our school district and presenting so that we keep our communication going back and forth and keeping that positive. On page 16, we currently, and this is actually happening tonight, that there are some interviews taking place looking for a student to work on an oral history project, and this is through the Historical Commission. So this is a project that will be moving forward, and we're looking for some students to help with the Historical Commission to make this happen. We're going to be identifying potential people in our Novi community to interview, and then hopefully we'll be able to keep these oral histories and keep some history of Novi that is live and authentic from the actual people living here. So that's currently going on with Historical Commission. Towards the bottom of the page on 16, the school district, one of our monitors, his name is Eric Stropa. He is a monitor on Wednesday afternoons in the teen space at the library, and he offered a ping pong tournament, and it was a very very well attended and a huge success for our teens. So we'll continue to do some programming in the teen space, every couple of months, just to keep the kids involved in the library, as well as just providing a good space for them. And and one last thing, that would be on page 18 at the very bottom. We had a huge success with our Light Up the Night event at the library on December 6th. We had over 1,000 people come through the doors, and 2 magic shows that were very well attended. And then the cafe took part, and I wanted just to make note of that they were one of our sponsors, along with Walmart, Menchie's, and the Behringer family. So we had a great program that night. And that's all I have. I'll entertain any questions.
Once we think that meeting room that we have down there is big enough, we have an event like that just absolutely fills the place up. It was pretty incredible.
Right, and that's 2 shows. We knew that we should offer 2, just knowing the numbers. And
packed.
You're right, Trustee Stirring, we should have built it bigger. If you build it bigger, they will come. So, but it was a great success, great evening.
Moving on to item number 9 on our agenda, which is the treasurer's report. Our treasurer is not here tonight. I don't know if anybody else has any comments. David, do you have any comments? You are prepared at all times,
I would be remiss if I did not have a comment. And let me start out, and I mean this in all sincerity and compliments, but when Trustee Stirring was treasurer and he would give his monthly report, the very first thing he would say, the numbers are in balance, and then he'd get into the analysis. I wish I could make that comment because they're not, and that bothers me. We had the opportunity, the Finance Committee met, and you'll see in the notes, we were given the audit results for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2013. Included in last year were some additional expenses that we were unaware of through our October meeting. When questioned, we were told that those were accruals, which implies that, okay, that the monies were spent, and it was in the area of salaries that really caught my attention, close to 30 grand of additional expense. And the explanation given was those were to be accrued for last fiscal year. I'm okay with that, with the expectation then, when you get into the current fiscal year, there should be a reversal of that accrual. And when we got the November numbers, it's not reflected. So I don't know if that implies that there's an additional $30,000 worth of salaries assessed the last year that are in addition to the current, or whether the current needs to be restated to reflect the fact that payments made in the current fiscal year related to last year. So that's still an open item in my book. With respect to expenditures for the month of November in account 268, there was a correction of an item brought up at last month's meeting with respect to the Novi Township assessment. That error was identified and corrected, so there was a $12,000 reversal here, bringing the year-to-date revenue in line at $5,787. Total expenditures for the month were $194,000, which, along with that reversal of the Novi Township revenue, created a net monthly operating deficit of $200,000. On a year-to-date basis, then we are showing here, I want to get this right. I'm sorry, that was the cumulative balance, I'm sorry, is $200,000. There were $12,000 of prior year adjustments. And if you look at the balance sheet for account 268, and those are, you'll find, because I would just hand it out here. on page 2 of 4. Okay, you'll see that the net revenues and expenses show a deficit of 218,000. So there's a difference unaccounted for here of $5,976.73. I don't know if it's a balance sheet error, or I don't know if that means that there was additional expenditures not reflected. If that were the only thing, I could deal with it. What bothers me here is that we have, as a functioning board, a fiduciary responsibility for oversight of the library budget. And we are grateful and thankful to the city for all their assistance in preparing the financials. But we need to be able to rely at face value on the information we're given in order to render decisions in terms of how things are being spent. And more importantly, to provide feedback to the staff in terms of how well they're doing relative to actual expenditures against the budget. Why am I bringing this up, you ask? Because included in the November report of revenues and expenditures, there's 10 items that total $12,000 that are retroactive adjustments to sometime between July and October. They may be bona fide, they may be justified, but they're not clarified. We shouldn't have to stumble upon these things. But either the year-to-date numbers for the cumulative 5 months have been adjusted and we're not aware of it, or the current expenditures aren't reflected properly. I don't know what the answer is here. So, again, I keep hounding, I'd like consistency, okay? So I'll assume at face value that the numbers we're giving as a year-to-date balance are correct, but it implies a restatement of prior statements that we've reviewed and discussed. And I have a problem with that.
Question, Trustee Easton?
I'm just looking, if you look at page 2 of 3 for the revenue expenditure report, the date on that says December 13th versus on page 2 for the balance sheet, the date at the very top says 12/16. So that might be in reflection of the $5,000 change, if anything had gone through for that prior month, but that doesn't explanation of the year-end transactions that need to be. But in terms of that, the reports itself look like they weren't run on the same days.
Whether they're run on the same date, there should be the same information.
But
Agreed. But the implication is the burden now shifts to the staff to have to go validate information that is being provided to us.
Right.
And the assumption should be that we're in balance to start our conversation, and we shouldn't have to have cutoff issues.
Correct.
Question, a more detailed question, but in regard to the taxes for the township, was that extra money just somewhere else in our budget, or was it just that particular line item that number made no sense whatsoever?
There was a mistake in recording from the finance department, and it was actually city money. It was not library money that got recorded into that account. So unfortunately, it's not ours. I was hoping I could get a finder's fee by bringing it to their attention, but that they need that money. So unfortunately,
Okay,
it was.
but I mean, it didn't come out of that
No.
township line and go
No.
somewhere else?
Well, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, to the city, but not within the.
correct, but
library.
not to us.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
There's a question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
And then we'll come back.
Trustee Kilgore.
I agree with trustees Teasdale and Margolis. I think that when adjustments are made to the financials retroactively, it would be nice if, when we received them, there was a footnote to that effect, explaining it at the bottom. Perhaps it's as simple as just making that request for that practice to be instituted with the city finance department.
I can do that.
Seemed like a friendly request.
Continuing on with Fund 269, the Walker Fund. just for clarification purposes for the board, the original contract and the amendment to the contract with the Walker family that established that fund expires at the end of this month, the end of the calendar year, 12/31. The Finance Committee met, as was instructed by the board at the last meeting. We met with the city and we discussed options. And to give you perspective, as of November 30th, the Walker Fund has a fund balance of $1,552,228, which is broken down into two components: an unrestricted fund balance of $1,436,000 adjusted by the current expenditure over revenue deficit of $12,000, or roughly $1,424,000, and then a variety, a little over a dozen or so restricted funds that total $115,892. The suggestion was made, if we're going to consolidate into the fund, that we only take the unrestricted part and that we leave the restricted because they were designated with a specific purpose in mind, but that we possibly retitle Fund 269 to reflect the fact that that's the holding place for restricted funds. And then we can make a future determination of what to do with now the increased unrestricted fund that will be consolidated after the end of the fiscal year.
I did receive a follow-up phone call from Victor Cardenas, who's interim finance director for the city. He did speak with the city attorney, and there can be action made anytime after December 31st. So he did clarify the language from the contract. So anything can be done following the 31st by the board.
That was part one. Part two was, do we need a formal resolution to
You
do
do.
that?
Yes, you need to have some form of action made, correct?
But it doesn't necessarily have to be done tonight in advance of the expiration. It can be done
Exactly.
anytime
Exactly.
subsequent.
My recommendation would be for perhaps the finance committee to get back together one more time to think about a recommendation for the board to make for the January meeting. And if that's what you'd like to do, then we can set up a meeting from there. But that would be a recommendation for us to at least continue talks. And our meeting in January will be the 22nd. It was pushed back once, so we're looking at the fourth Wednesday of the month, this month. It was pushed back because of council and budget. So it won't be the 15th.
Oh, that's good. I'll have more to report when we get to the committee reports for the finance committee. We can talk more about it, but these are my thoughts in terms of what I saw from the November financials presented.
Thank you, David, for being able to pick that up so quickly. I agree that if there are changes that are made to the report, somehow they have to identify us that way. And if you will communicate that, Julie.
I will, absolutely.
Because we've seen, not just once or twice, but on a almost monthly basis, somebody picks up that, even though it's not identified, and you always worry about the things you don't pick up. So, good. Any other questions or comments in regard?
I'm sorry, you know what? I just assumed that everybody had a chance to look at the final June numbers, and maybe you shouldn't assume, but this was for the Walker Fund. Hold on just one second. The bottom line is, again, I hearken back when we met in the springtime and we talked about the one-time stipend, and we made a commitment to Trustee Mena that we weren't going to exceed the board authorized expenditure of the deficit reimbursement, and we came in $100,000 less than what we had allocated. So promises met, promises kept.
Yes. Other questions, comments in regard to financials? In that case, we're going to move on to item number 10, the director's report. Julie.
Okay, thank you. Page 23, just a few things to highlight this evening. We will be holding our budget planning sessions 2 Saturdays, one February 1st from 8 a.m. till noon, and Saturday, March 1st, 8 a.m. to noon. They will be at the library in our East Meeting Room on the 1st floor. And so if there's any questions or anything that you have or that you'd like to see during budget time, if you could send me those questions, that would be most helpful. I'm starting to work on budgets currently. Okay. I have some great news about Novi Library being a huge help to the state of Michigan. We are going to be a partner with the Federal Bank, the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, also the American Library Association, and the Library of Michigan. We've all partnered to bring on Money Smart Week, which actually has been celebrated for a number of years, but this is the first year that Michigan is really making a big impact. A number of the Midwest states have been involved in this particular campaign for a number of years. But we had the opportunity, I was approached actually to see if Novi wanted to get involved in a bigger capacity, where I connected the Federal Reserve Bank with the Library of Michigan, so that we could put a blast out to the entire state of Michigan to see if libraries wanted to take part in this Money Smart Week in April 5th through the 12th in 2014. We did. We put a blast out through a listserv that goes to all of the public libraries in Michigan. That's over 400 different libraries from top to bottom, including the upper. And I'm happy to report we had the opportunity for a fund in order for us to receive free books, 2,500 free books, to be dispersed out throughout the state depending on libraries wanting to take part in this program. We have reached our goal. In fact, we've had more ask than what we can do, which I think is great for our first year. Novi Library will supply the actual distribution, so we will have the books, they're being purchased by a donor, and we will have the books then dropped off at the Novi Library. We will be the distribution placed in order to get all the books to all the libraries in Michigan. We'll be using the TLN delivery system and the RIDES system through the state of Michigan, which does the MELCAT delivery, which is our Michigan electronic catalog system. So we took on the lead in getting our libraries involved in this Money Smart program for the state of Michigan, and we will also be providing a program as well during the week for a story time. It's for young children, preschool age, so that they start learning about money and being smart money users, and we're hosting a program for 25 children where they will all receive a free book. There will also be a free book for parents as well to coordinate. So I was pretty excited about us taking the lead in that for our library and to be working with other libraries in Michigan. Then, and what I included was the note that went out to the listserv from the state librarian, Nancy Robertson, on how to get everyone involved. And then we will be talking about the download destination participation agreement that'll come up in matters for board action this evening. That's information that was provided to you. On page 29, the board had asked for a report to be presented in December on library cards required for service. So I had Wendy Teagan, who is the head of support services, provide you some information on how the campaign went. This was a 6-month campaign that we started last March in 2013, where we started educating our patrons and asking them to be aware of us requiring a library card for service. I can tell you that this has gone over very well, and I attribute it to many factors. One, that we took our time in order to tell our story and to share with the patrons what we wanted and what we were expecting. We gave them time to get their cards if they didn't have one, to find their cards, to get a new card if they needed one. And then we found new ways for them to use a library card. The traditional library card that goes in your wallet. We also have a library card that goes on a keychain, and we have changed our technology with our barcode readers at the library in order to accept phones and a scanned library card image in a phone in order for people to have their library card already on them when they come into the building. So their wallet, their keys, and their phone. We pretty much think we've reached out to everyone by having that capability, and I do think I don't think it has. It's been a huge success. One great story about this is we actually, because of an electricity downtime that we had, where a number of areas were affected by electricity. And luckily, our library was not, but many libraries were, and TLN was affected for close to 48 hours where they had no power. So their system, we had to go on our backup system. And when you use our backup system at the library for checking out materials, you can only have a library card. That's the only way. We can't look up anyone's records. We can't look up any accounts. Basically, all we can do is the checkout function. So we were able to do that seamlessly at our library when that situation occurred. I have received personally no complaints to my office on us going to the requirement for library card. Now, I know that the staff has done very well in educating the patrons, and we've also given them a grace if they do forget their library card. We give them a one-time allowed checkout, and then we put a note in their record as a reminder, and then we encourage them either to find the card or get a new card. We also didn't charge library patrons either when we were first doing the campaign in order for them to get a new card. We really wanted to get the card in hand. Yes, Trustee Margolis?
Yeah, I have a comment that I'd like to share. One of the goals of the staff was customer service focus. And I can say anecdotally from having observed the interaction of staff with patrons relative to this needing the library card issue, how well the communication is and how fine a job they did diffusing potentially unsettling opportunities. And where I see it, or where I saw most evidence of it, is when a spouse was be present trying to take out something that was designated from the other spouse without having their record.
Right.
And that created an issue, and yet, again, through courtesy and professionalism, able to diffuse and handle these situations. So I just want to offer my kudos to the staff.
I will be happy to pass that on to them as well. I think they've done a wonderful job. And that's another part of it that helps is, by requiring that library card and educating our patrons to the card that a hold might be specifically put on to, then they can they can pick up those materials very easily. Mm-hmm. Any other questions, comments? No?
Well, one, just in regard to this.
Yes, absolutely.
And that is, has there been any confusion relative to, there's still free libraries that people can come in and just walk into the library without a card? I mean, they can't take anything out. Has there been any confusion that people think they can't even go into the library?
There was at first. When in fact, there was a particular sign that went up early, probably I think in April, not right in March, but in April and May, we actually put a sign up as you were walking in the door that said card needed for service. And we did get people who walked in, and it's great to have a welcome desk actually, and people right there that can address patrons, because they do have a look sometimes where they're unsure or they might have a question. And that did come up. People would say, do I need my card to even be in the building? And we were able to educate right away. No, it's just for when you're checking out or placing a hold. So it gave us a chance really for a talking point for that welcome desk. So there was a little bit of confusion with those signs at first, yes, but it did give us an opportunity to share really what that goal was for that message. We didn't want to change the message, and we didn't want to remove it because we felt it, and some people felt maybe it was too strong because it said library card must be used, but we really wanted to make that communication for the patrons, for them to be aware that it is needed. They are going to need it, and it's important to have on hand. Mm-hmm.
Good. Any other questions or comments? Okay.
And then we'll go into, I included all of the information from the Finance Committee meeting. So we'll go through that during the committee time. There is a Public Services report from Margie Karp-Ober, Assistant Director. just highlighting some of the programming and events that occurred in November. On page 39, there is a report from our Building Operations Assistant Director, Mary Ellen Mulcrone, just highlighting some of the information about when we were closed for staff day and how we handled, enormous amounts of books and getting those back on the shelf very quickly. I think I have a very dedicated staff, especially, all of them are dedicated, but that support services staff truly is amazing when they can turn around materials in less than 24 hours and get them back on the shelves. Get them checked in and back on the shelf when you're closed a whole entire day, because thousands of materials are coming in. So I do send a message to them that they are doing a fantastic job really getting those materials back. Yes.
I saw that you hired some clerks in the last, page number 39, last line.
Yes.
So is this addition to what you have? Or?
No, these are people this is probably the one area of the library where we see the most turnover is in our clerk positions. Because they're part-time, they're less than 20 hours. Typically, they're closer to 15-hour positions. And so people might get an opportunity to, get a full-time job or get more hours, and they will leave. So you're seeing turnover of filling of positions that are currently, no new positions.
Thank you.
Then we go on to our statistics for the month of November. We issued 335 cards this month. We checked out 63,631 items, borrowed over or close to 8,000, we borrowed 3,600 and we loaned out 4,200 items. So those were items going back and forth out of our building to other TLN libraries. Page 41 talks about our self-checkout, and we're currently running at a 59.37% of checkout at our self-checkout, so that's staying very consistent over the last couple years.
And below the 60% goal that we set.
I know. We had it was up at 60 for a little bit, but it has dipped down a little bit. And then there are library usage numbers explaining the hours that we were open and the daily average. So our daily average for November was 1,162 people in the building. On page 42, we have our computer login information provided. And on page 43, our early literacy workstation usage. Page 44 is information on technology sessions and the different types of sessions we've been providing. And page 45 is usage of our Freegal, which is our free music downloads, Overdrive, which is many ebooks, and Zinio, which is our magazines, over 200 titles that patrons can download full text. On page 46, we have our charging station information and our meeting room rentals for November. As you can see, our numbers are staying quite high with our meeting room rentals. And then on page 47 is information in relation to our library app and statistics currently and how our library app is being used. And as you can see, the numbers are going up. And November, we had 13,000 hits on our app compared to when we first launched in July at 989. So our library app is definitely getting more use, and people are getting to know it as we continue to market it. That's all I have, and I'm happy to address any questions.
Any questions, any comments for Julie? Okay. If not, I'm going to move on to item number 11, which is Friends of the Novi Library report, or 12, I'm sorry.
Their information is attached. This is a draft, I want to make sure, because it's not written actually on the sheet that's incorporated on page 48, but it is a draft of their minutes. They did not hold a December meeting, so these have not been approved. Basically, their treasurer's report, they have in their checking account $21,370.26, savings account $5,425.78, and their CD account $10,157.21. So they're looking at currently $36,000, almost $37,000 in their account, which they graciously will be turning over some of that because of our wish list. And we are currently working with them to work through our wish list for this year. They had a great November book sale, which was held on November 16th. I know that they raised close to $1,000 on that, and they were very pleased with that as well. And I'm happy to entertain any questions. They did not hold their gala this year, and that's one thing I wanted to make note of. And unfortunately, it was due to some of the changes in the calendar and events that were currently being held with the city that the library gets involved in. So they took a year off. They're looking to plan for something not for the spring, but for the fall. And I think it'll be something that the library will also partner with them so that we can do a larger event. Probably a thank you and then also a drive for membership as well. So you'll be getting more details to that in the new year.
Any thoughts from the Friends relative to manning the concessions at a Tiger game?
I will be bringing that information to them in January.
You'll be bringing?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm. That's all I have.
Any question in regards to the Friends report? Draft report?
Yes, draft.
Student representatives report.
Okay. On November 1st, we had a TAB meeting with 14 attendees, and we talked about upcoming team programming and new volunteer opportunities. And after this, we had the WOW Scholarship Essay Writing with 22 people, and then the Dollars for College program after that with 18 participants. And then we closed the month off with the Hunger Games program, which was a great success with 34 teens.
And then in the month of November, we had a total of 15 teen space sessions, and they had 879 students, so about 60 kids in a session. And we also had 14 teen volunteers that help with the programming and the various needs of the library.
Thank you very much. Any questions in regard to the students representative report?
Well, just comment, I've taken an opportunity, I know we've had the after-school teen space set up now for,
We're going on almost a year and a half.
about a year and a half, and in that time, I really hadn't had much of an opportunity to really see what it was about. So over the past month, I kind of snuck in a couple times, and I got to tell you, I was really impressed with the numbers. At least when I was there, the kids were well behaved. It looked like they were all engaged, and I really think it's a good service that we offer the community. So
I do too. I do. I think it is serving a wonderful purpose. And I do think it's providing an opportunity for the kids to connect with the library. They might not have in the past, and this is a way for them to see that we have something available. We're offering ping pong, we're offering Xbox Connects, we're offering tutoring from the National Honor Society. They're sending over students and they drop in to see if there's any students that could use additional help. So not only is it fun and interactive and social, but it also can be educational as well with the National Honor Society. And I do think it is serving a very big need that we've noticed we need, and we have.
No historical commission report tonight?
There is not.
Okay, so we're up to committee reports, item number 14.
Yes. Do you want to go, or do you want me for committee for
We'll discuss
for
finance.
the finance committee?
Your preference?
Why don't you go ahead?
Okay. The Finance Committee met with city representatives on Wednesday, December 11th. The major topic of conversation, obviously, was the impending expiration of the Walker Fund contract. However, first item of business was presentation of the audited results for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2013. And I don't know, does everybody have a copy on page 34? For the people present at the meeting, but now more importantly for my fellow trustees, I just put together a little 5-year recap of where we were relative to the decline in revenues, the budget allocations authorizing use of the unrestricted fund balance, the actual fund balance allocation needed to zero everything out. And as I mentioned earlier, We had committed up to $305,000 being allocated. We only need to move $199,000. So one way to look at it is we saved $106,000. We didn't really save it, we just didn't have to
Allocate
use
as
it.
much.
But that's 65% of the total. For the current fiscal year, again, we anticipate a flat revenue stream of just under $2.5 million. If expenditures are at budget, we'll come up short potentially $481,000. Again, 5 months into the year, we're already tracking positive. If we get that $30,000 accrual adjustment back out, if it's thrown into last year, then I'm fairly confident that we won't need to spend that much again. So the question remains, we're going to add $1.5 million of unrestricted fund balance to our current fund balance. What is our intended use? Well, luckily, we don't have any immediate pressing needs relative to plugging operational deficits beyond the $400,000 that we've already authorized. There are no major capital improvements, parking lot, roof, elevator, HVAC system of any magnitude. It would be prudent for us, and we've had conversations along the way in anticipation, and maybe we should start earmarking for intended future capital outlays. Or another thought that came up, and we had a presentation from an outside third party, the Northville Community Foundation, as an option of investing some funds with them. It's not quite an endowment situation that we had discussed, maybe it was a year ago, when we talked to the Southeast Michigan Community Foundation, which is a true endowment. So we expressed some interest, and we're going to gather more information in terms of what their not only performance, but how it operates and what it means to us. But the biggest difference is that once you contribute funds to the foundation, it's not money locked the way that you can't touch the corpus. You can only draw the proceeds from this. With advance notice, you could possibly recover them in case of catastrophe. So that's something to consider. The other option that I would like the board to start thinking about is maybe we create our own internal endowment fund, i.e. that we kind of look ahead when tax revenues hopefully start to uptick again. You know, I think that we've plateaued here, and that there is some healing going on, and the general economy will get better. And of our $4 million fund balance, we may not need to earmark for capital improvements the entire amount. Maybe we should take X amount of dollars, endow an internal fund, and just work off of the earnings on that, and let it sit and compound, and any future contributions can increase it. But we would have the ability to recall it if need be. So from my perspective, I think that's where I'd be leaning to think in terms of a permanent endowment for a portion of the unrestricted fund balance.
Did the Northville community indicate what their past returns were? They have some kind of an average return?
They were talking 10%.
And that's been over a number of years.
You know, unlike municipal investments, they're not restricted. So obviously they've got to be investing in equities, you know, or
And that
other
was one of the
mutual funds or
questions we
whatever. And those
asked.
were some
Yeah.
of the questions that we asked them to
What are they?
provide more information. I
Which
don't know
I've already sent questions inquiring, so I'm hoping that I'll receive some information back to share with all of you.
but at least it's food for thought, and it's something to consider.
I also like the fact that it is local. And we do a lot with both communities.
Near local, Novi would be local.
Yes, next door, neighbors. Noville, they're,
Well, that's good, because I think that we really do have, as, you know, the Walker Fund will merge realistically with the operating fund, and we will have a sizable sum of money in there that I think that's important that we're looking at. I thank the Finance Committee for leading us in that direction, because I think that's something that we have to move towards and, use our funds wisely. And I think now is the right opportunity to do that.
I think what I will do is I will put out some dates to the Finance Committee for us to meet in early January so that we can come back in January for the January board meeting with a recommendation for all of you.
I don't know if you included it in I think you did. Yes, on page 35, 35 and 36, one of the things that the city did is, and we've questioned for years, what their investment philosophy, policy, strategy is. Obviously, we always want higher yield with, minimal risk. And they kind of provide a little matrix explaining a little bit what their orientation is. Their investment window, I don't think, for the most part, goes beyond 24 months, except in a few rare instances. So they're not really committed long-term into any vehicles, which, as we discussed at the last meeting, is a concern to me. Again, at some point, the global economy will turn, interest rates will normalize again, and earning more than 0.5% or 1% will become the new normal once again. And I don't want to be caught stuck in thinking we're doing a great job earning at 2%, when the rest of the world is now, 5 to 10.
Yeah.
But, and that is not only really the term of the investment, but it's the type of the investment that generally you can't invest in equities.
Correct.
And the equities, where the community foundations invest in equities, and they're making the 8 to 10% returns on an annual basis over a long period of time. And as long as you have a long period of time, you can suffer through some market conditions, you know.
One of the things I was impressed with the presentation from the Northville Foundation was the fact that every donor is important. When we were, and not to compare, but when we were talking and looking into other organizations, sometimes the donor, based on what was being given, didn't seem very big. And for us, every donor is very important to us at the library. And I want to make sure that if whatever we go into or whatever we look into, that no matter what, all of our donors and anyone who is sponsoring or giving to the library is recognized. And I think sometimes when you're dealing with something so large, that can go away or it can be missed. So I appreciated the smaller, more like a hometown feel almost, or a smaller organization for that. But I do think we have a lot of options to look at, so it'll be good to have that meeting.
To follow up on that thought, I think that maybe at our next meeting, it would be appropriate if we had a board resolution, once again, thanking the Walker Fund, the Walker family, for providing us this 5-year safety net that we've had available to us. Luckily, we didn't have to use it, but we're appreciative of the fact that they were flexible and gave us that opportunity if need be.
Anything else from the committee or for the committee? Any other committee reports, Julie?
Not at this time.
Okay. Next item would be item 15, which is public comment. This is another opportunity at our meeting for the public, if they have any comments, to present them to the board. Just go to the podium if you have any comments, would like to make any comments to the board. I'm not seeing anybody run to the podium, so I'm going to close the public comment and move on to item number 16, which is matters for board action, to approve the download destination participation agreement.
Yes.
Julie, I think you're gonna have to explain this. to
Sure,
us.
absolutely. And actually, we've already gone through this process a couple years ago when we entered into the agreement for Download Destination, which is the company Overdrive that we are currently working with so that we get our ebooks and our downloadable materials. This is a renewal, so this is just a renewal agreement. They look for all of the libraries that participate by board resolution to approve the information here stating the agreement and stating that they will take part in it. The reason why they do this is because if we were to decide to go out of the agreement, the materials belong to Download Destination. We're basically borrowing, using them. They go back and we don't have access to them. However, we've also purchased and gotten ourselves into Download Destination, which is another piece of that, which the library has actually purchased. Those are our downloadable materials, and we will keep those. So basically, it's just us, again, approving the agreement to be part of this.
Am I correct on page 27 that we're tier 4, and the fee would be $8,000 a year?
We are. You are correct.
One thing I noticed in the,
Excuse me, trustee Margolis, I apologize. Our service area is under 60,000. I do believe we're in the range. We're not, our population is not 60. It's under 60.
It's between 30 and 60, right?
that would be a
Yes.
tier 4.
Oh, I'm sorry. When I looked at it, it's not the, yeah. I think there should be a tier 5. So I just went, yes, you are
Yeah,
correct.
okay.
It is 4.
There's 2 tier 4.
When I looked at them, I was looking at the other tier 4. So I went,
Okay,
yes,
I'm sorry.
yes.
The one comment I had on the agreement, and it's not a major comment, but it's sort of a little bit undefined, because for termination rights, you have to terminate 90 days before the annual fee is invoiced. I don't think, anybody know, they invoice at a certain time?
They do.
Okay.
And we know that.
Okay, so
Yes.
even though it's not really specified, when
Right.
do they invoice, like the beginning of the year?
Usually it's the beginning of our fiscal. It's typically we've been invoiced usually at the beginning or middle of our year. We'll know when that time frame is.
Like July-ish, something like that?
Correct.
Okay, so, well, as
Yep.
long as we know in practice when
We
that is.
actually will already know even before budget time if we'd be continuing it again. That's how we tend to plan.
Okay, so, I mean,
Yes.
it's not a major thing, it's just, it's, on the face of the document, you couldn't really tell the timing of when you'd have to do that. Not that it'd be likely we'd
Well,
want to do
and
that
they're all
anyway.
different depending on when we actually got involved in the agreement originally, too. So it's not all the same time.
So, point of information, so who authorizes, the board that does this, or the director that signs the contract, or?
I believe the board signed it last time, so I'll be looking for a signature. Yes, because it's board resolution.
Then I'd like to make a motion that we adopt this Download Destination Participating Library Service Agreement as presented.
Discussion?
No, I believe it's every 3 years. We haven't had this in a couple years. It doesn't come back annually. Yes. That's annual, but the agreement, yes, but the agreement comes back not every year. Yeah. You're welcome.
Any discussion on the motion to adopt the Download Destination Participating Library Service Agreement? There's no discussion. I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor of adopting the Library Network Download Destination Participation Library Service Agreement, say aye. Aye. Any opposition?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Hearing none. It's been approved that we participate and execute the agreement.
And I'll reach out to you, Mark, for a signature.
Okay. That is the only item that required board action tonight. I have nothing other than a motion to adjourn, unless anybody else has.
Look at
I
that.
think that's very appropriate that trustee Kilgore should move to adjourn on his last meeting here. It has been seconded, right? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Did we have a second? Did you get the second? You did, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, gentlemen, and have a Merry Christmas and a wonderful holiday.